Hey guys. Okay, real quick, let's go through this. This is from Lucis Trust, and it's the stage of the Forerunner and the 2025 Conclave. So let's get started with this.
On the ways that we can, during these last few years of the stage of the Forerunner, help prepare humanity for the 2025 conclave. We'll be using the three recognitions that DK describes as necessary for humanity to come to at that time.
Okay, DK is an ascended master. He's the one that channeled the books to Alice Bailey. Again, we know them as fallen angels. Okay.
So next time we'll be looking at that. So, but first, during this session, a bit of background. Every 100 years, on the 25th year of the century, there is a great assembly of the hierarchy. By the way, the pictures are just used to mark the eras. Sometimes they are more hierarchical than other times, but they are used primarily to mark the time period. These conclaves of masters, almost certainly overseen by the Christ, determine the agenda for hierarchical impression on humanity for the following century. I was surprised to learn that only a few of the members of the hierarchy have reached the stage of development that actually allows them to be part of these councils. A master's inclusion is, at least in part, determined by their ability to respond to the intoning by Sanat Kumara of what DK simply describes as an O. It is this sound sent forth every 100 years that gathers together those masters capable of responding into the council. There's also a council held on the 75th year of each century, which plants the seed for the conclave that follows. The purpose of all these hierarchical gatherings was and is to stimulate human consciousness. As you can see by this chart, the conclaves often, though not always, heralded the introduction of a new ray energy, or some aspect of a ray energy, gradually bringing 6 of the 7 ray energies into play. Okay, we tend to assume that the hierarchy has always been with us, but this is not the case. DK tells us that, quote, when the hierarchy withdrew behind the separating curtain in Atlantean times, it marked the beginning of an interlude of darkness, of aridity, and a cycle of, quote, blank abstraction, which persisted in its crudest form until 1425. That's the time of the first conclave. And since then has sensibly lightened until we reach the year 1925. Unfortunately, we don't have time to look at the earlier conclaves, but that's okay. 1925 was a momentous conclave during which 3 great potencies were released, all in preparation for the conclave coming in less than 3 years. The first of these great potencies was a fresh inflow of the Christ principle of spiritual love, resulting in the immediate and rapid growth of all movements that promote peace, world understanding, goodwill, philanthropic effort, and above all, brotherhood. The second was the stimulation of the principle of relationship, leading to an increased development of all methods of communication, such as the press, the radio, ever advancing forms of travel. And we can guess that this same outflow was later responsible for TV, the computer, and the internet. The objective of this second outpouring was to bring human beings closer together and thus outwardly parallel the developing inner spiritual unity. The third.
You guys catch that? He's basically saying that all that technology was channeled into people.
Potency was to outwardly direct the force from Shambhala, thus acting on a decision made during the 1825 conclave that enabled Shambhala to have a direct connection with humanity. This has only happened twice before, once in the Lemurian root race, the third root race, and secondly during Atlantis, at that time to aid the Lords of Light in their struggle against the Dark Brotherhood. This great triple energetic flow was made possible by the fact that in 1925, we're told, the location of the entire hierarchy actually shifted from the higher mental levels to the Buddhic plane, thereby allowing for a direct and unimpeded etheric reception of shambhalic energy by the hierarchy. On this shift, DK says, this is one of the significances of the word which we read in the New Testament, that the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, a symbolic way of expressing the unveiling of an.
Okay, guys, the Theosophist will bring up the Bible often, but it's very twisted from what what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say orthodox, but not orthodox. Your typical Bible-believing Christians, it's very twisted. Paul was in basically a theosophist, into the mystery religions. Jesus wasn't so they'll bring up the Christ and they'll bring up Jesus, but that Christ is an appointed position that Jesus fell into, right? And so Jesus isn't the Christ, so that they twist stuff around, but let's keep going.
Unimpeded channel. There were also other effects. The publication of a treatise on cosmic fire in 1925 was incredibly important. DK says TCF will stand as the major and most far-reaching portion of the 30-year teachings. It was also during this time that AAB initiated the Arcane School. Another effect was what DK calls the emergence of a structure of truth and a paralleling responsiveness of the human mechanism, which will eventually allow for the next stage of the teachings of the ageless wisdom. So you see, these seeds are planted way in advance. This next stage won't be so much about more information, but will rather initiate an upward shift in our ability to comprehend, which will allow us to, quote, share in the great hierarchical task of illuminating, precipitating, and lifting. So, if you're looking for the third dispensation from DK as a series of books or as a website or, in some other way, that's not quite how it's going to come out. According to DK, it's actually going to be affect our own ability to be useful to the hierarchy in lifting humanity. Another great triumph of the 1925 conclave was the emergence of a band of advanced souls called the New Group of World Servers, whose purpose was and is to stimulate human consciousness in such a way that it evokes a response to the plan, a goal only possible because of humanity's current level of spiritual advancement. In 1975, and again in the year 2000, a direct impact of shambolic energy was loosed upon humanity. Each time this energy is sent forth, we're told, some fuller aspect of the divine plan is realized. DK tells us that shambolic energy invariably results in synthesis and, quote, holds all things within the circle of the divine love. There are a couple of predictions centered around 1925 that have not come to pass. One of these is a widespread realization by the scientific community of the existence of the soul. The other prediction concerns the third iteration of DK's teachings. The first came through HPB, the second through AAB, and third, described by DK as, quote, revelatory, emerging after 1975 to be given on a worldwide scale via the radio. So even if we concede that the radio is now the internet, it seems like the third revelatory phase of the teaching hasn't yet come forth. Of course, DK does say after 1975. So this brings us to our main topic, the theme of this talk, the imminent 2025 conclave. DK's descriptions of this great upcoming event make it clear that the triple energy stream given out in 1925 was definitely in preparation for this coming event, hence the name, the stage of the forerunner. Not since the reestablishment of the influence of the hierarchy in 1425 has the year during which a conclave was held also marked the commencement of a ray cycle. All the other rays began their cycles on the 75th year of a century, and thus acted as, at least in part, of a seed energy for the conclave that occurred 50 years later. But 2025 will mark the beginning of the fourth ray cycle, the ray of humanity itself. Though we're told it will only come slowly into manifestation, this will bring into activity the sixth of 7 rays, leaving only the first ray out of manifestation. The idea of a manifested 6 energized by a hidden 7th is found throughout the ageless wisdom and mythology and can be illustrated in sacred geometry both through the 6-pointed star and the cube, with the 6 faces of the cube representing a vehicle of manifestation for the hidden 1 at the center. 6 manifest rays, 1, appropriately the first, unmanifest. We find the linear version of this in the way DK illustrates the subplanes of the cosmic physical plane in TCF, with the uppermost subplane representing the unmanifest source of the 6 manifesting planes beneath it. A study of the conclaves and the intermediate periods between them suggests that the influence of these ray cycles not only determines the nature and quality of the conclave's agenda and subsequent outpouring, but also that these ray potencies are algorithmically cumulative, which suggests that the 2025 conclave will be the most potent single dispensation of them all, as mentioned by Kathy. This is in part true because when a ray is in manifestation, the ashrams associated with that ray.
Okay, guys, I'll leave a link to this, but you could see that 2025 there a buzz about this. Now, Lucis Trust, part of the UN, all the world leaders are all Theosophists, which is basically, they're Luciferian. It's a blend between the Eastern and Western mysticism. Um, yes, there's a form of Gnosticism in it, and kind of the common theme is they all do believe these ascended masters are good guys. And again, we call them fallen angels. Yeah, I think that's it, guys. So I'll leave a link.